and the ever-growing popularity of no and low alcohol drinks. We'll find out why the sector is booming. Talking of fast-growing sectors that are becoming quite crowded, no and low alcohol, NOLO, as it's known in the industry, is just that. The giant global beer and spirits groups are investing big money in the sector, and more small and premium or artisan producers continue to emerge. Well, NOLO sales are already 3% of the vast overall global market, and that number is growing very sharply as young consumers move away from alcohol. Well, Mark Livings is the chief executive of Lyre, a non-alcoholic spirits company that's just raised new finance and is looking to expand quickly. Mark, morning to you. You better explain first of all the name.
Good morning, Ian. Yes, I've actually got one here. The name is Lyre. It's a non-alcoholic spirit, as you can see, and the Lyre is actually the Australian lyrebird.
The lyrebird, which you're proudly Aussie, obviously, yeah. I mean, it's quite a crowded market, as I was saying. You know, you've got Gordon's, owned by Diageo, of course, non-alcoholic, and they own Seedlip, big player. How difficult is it going up against these guys?
Look, I think, the larger beverage businesses over the course of the last few decades have shown that they're not particularly agile when it comes to innovation. A lot of their growth is coming from acquisition. So it's a really good example in the case of Seedlip, where Diageo acquired that in order to move into the space. And now it's extending its marquee brands into the category as well. But it's very, very early days, and there's room for plenty of players here. Some of the risk that's presented to the major marquee brands is alibi marketing risk. And we've seen that in the 90s with tobacco, where you have brands that are synonymous with being hard liquor products that may have some sovereign risk attached to them if the public health lobby starts to attack them and says, hey, this product is technically available to a 12-year-old, but it's synonymous with hard liquor. So there's definitely room for existing marquee brands with some risk attached, but there's also going to be an impetus to build new brands that are specific to this category as well.
So how big do you think the category can become as a sort of percentage of overall drink sales?
It's hard to predict, but I think we can look to some analogues in other sectors. The vegan diet in most Western markets now sits at around 5% of total diets undertaken. And for a really compelling narrative, we can look at the plant-based milk industry. Around 15 years ago, that was sitting at around 1%, really only catering to the needs of the people who couldn't drink dairy for medical reasons. That now sits in the mid-teens in most Western markets. So this could be incredibly disruptive and arguably the most important change in the beverage alcohol market that we've seen for the last few decades.
And who's driving this? Is it younger millennials or is it even Gen Z?
It's an interesting stat that gets rolled out a lot, that millennials are the ones driving this. Millennials are part of the change, but the change is ubiquitous. What we can see, given that we're now distributed in more than 43 countries, is we've got a really great bird's eye view of the world. And what we're finding is this trend transcends cultures, it transcends international boundaries, and it also transcends income stratas. So we're finding people across all age groups, from boomers all the way down to Gen Z, are electing to drink more mindfully, be it for one round in a night in the week, or for a month off, and I guess as best represented by the amazing participation rates and growing participation rates in Dry January in the Northern Hemisphere and Dry July in the Southern Hemisphere.
Now, you've just raised £5 million. You're valued now at more than £100 million. How are you going to invest the proceeds?
There's three major pillars for investment, and this is a small round building on our already raised £15 million to date. The business is less than 2 years old, so we're trying to keep up with demand. That's our biggest problem. So I actually take a little comfort that we have the same problem that Oatly has and that the Impossible and Beyond Meat companies have, which is not being able to make enough product to keep up with demand. It's something we're all sharing and all dealing with at the moment in these nascent categories. But number one is shoring up our supply chain and building in capability to make it a little more robust. What we're finding is international freight and supply chains are still really brittle. Sideways boats in canals aside, we've had some difficulty moving product around the world to continue to keep up with demand. So building local inventory and local manufacturing capability is its core purpose. Beyond that, we really need to continue to grow awareness of the category. Beverage alcohol is being led by beer, And there's around a 60% saliency for non-alcoholic beer, or 6 in 10 adults know that non-alcoholic beer is a thing. Compare that to non-alcoholic spirits, we're still sitting at just over 1 in 10 consumers knowing that non-alcoholic spirits are an option available to them. So the fastest way for us to grow is to raise awareness. So we'll be pushing some considerable marketing funds into building that awareness piece. The last part, we'll be adding a lot more people. We're currently sitting at about 60 full-time employees. We expect to be over 100 by the end of the year.
All right. Mark, we've got to leave it there, I'm afraid. Thanks for joining me this morning.
A real pleasure, Ian. Thank you.
That's it from me. There's much more on the Sky News mobile app and on the website with reporting, video analysis and reporting from our business team. I'm back at 10 tomorrow. In the meantime, stay tuned. Up next.